AI for standard operating procedures, or SOPs, is one of the most practical applications for AI that we have today. So I'm going to be jumping into AI for standard operating procedures, the different applications and benefits that we have. My name's Sean. I work with Botable AI. So jumping into this, there's four really powerful ways that AI is being implemented across standard operating procedures. The first of which is, of course, creation. So this is usually people's first foray into using AI in an SOP, is they're using whatever large language model that they choose and they're using it to create a standard operating procedure. The next level is when you have something that's specifically trained to your industry, to your processes, to your employees, and then you generate the SOP from there. So having a chatbot that's specifically trained is going to get you a lot better results. But creating these SOPs in accordance to different regulations or different standards that your company has can be a headache. And this is where AI can really step in and help you. But having a trained AI is really where this becomes really powerful, which kind of gets me into the next one. So SOPs can be really long, complex documents. So having an interactive SOP chatbot makes that a lot easier. So the traditional SOP problem is where you have an employee with a question, and instead of them understanding and knowing the SOP and they can go reference it, they may not know it or understand it as well as they should, and so they spend a lot of time searching through it, or maybe they ask a manager, or maybe they just guess what the next step is because it's too much of a hassle to go search through that document. So the solution here is having an interactive SOP chatbot. So this chatbot is trained on this SOP in and out. It knows it back to front, front to back, and they can ask this chatbot questions and get responses that are not only the right answer, but also with references in the text to where that answer can be found. So this is really where things get powerful, because not only is it saving the employee time because they don't have to search a document, it's reducing how many manager outreaches they have, right? If the employee, the person that's performing the operating procedure, has a question, they can ask the chatbot instead of a manager, saving that manager time to do more strategy, more planning for the future. And then they're guessing less because it's so easy and accessible. So that's a really boiled down version of this, and it's really powerful. The trick here is that the AI has to be so well trained on this SOP that it needs to understand the ins and outs and all the background information. An SOP chatbot that is trained on an SOP, maybe common FAQs that are out there, maybe some different interactions between employees and managers, having all of that data, and now it's really ready to go and deliver the best information as fast as possible. So the next one is gap analysis. So going back to that chatbot idea, let's say you've implemented a chatbot for a few months, you have a big data set of all these interactions with it. Maybe your chatbot can now digest this really qualitative data. So data that's just conversations, can take that, digest it, and come up with action steps to resolve those issues. So maybe in step 4, employees are constantly running into issues. Maybe there's a problem that they're running into that isn't in the SOP. The chatbot can analyze all this data and provide actionable insights as to what changes you should make. So that's gap analysis. And there's a lot more that you can do there, but that's a really boiled down version of it. Okay, the last piece, and this is all sorts of complex because compliance means a lot of things. But in many industries, there's compliance or regulations that come out that they need to adhere to, and they have to go through all their documents and make sure that they are compliant. With an AI, you can actually take those compliance documents, say, hello, Mr. Chatbot that's trained on all my SOPs. Where are we not compliant with this regulation? It can go through all of your SOPs and flag certain areas and then make revision recommendations in order to get you to be compliant or whatever it may be. For example, maybe your documentation needs yearly updates for X, Y, or Z. Maybe you need to change some phrasing. This is where you can say, hey, I want to make changes, or hey, we have this new information. Where should we change the standard operating procedure? And that's where AI can just get it done really fast and you're good to go. So let's talk about some key benefits. So speed and efficiency is number 1. Obviously, that's the big thing with AI, is making your employees' hours go further. You're automating creation, you're making your employees have the information that they need faster. That's the name of the game when it comes to AI, is speed and efficiency. So accuracy and consistency. This one is something that AI gets a lot of flack for because people are used to these. But if you have an AI that's specifically trained on your business, AI is very much what you put in is what you get out. So having a partner or somebody that knows what they're doing implement the correct training data will get you those accurate and consistent results, right? So employee in a different country that asks in their own native language, they can actually get the same accurate answer as the other employee because it's trained to be consistent and reliable on the same information, and it's very accurate, which is obviously, like I said, a buzzword in AI spaces because a lot of people are not trusting answers that they're getting. But you have to remember, it's what you put in is what you get out. That training is really important. And that's why SOPs are awesome, because they actually have that training data almost built in. And AI can be trained specifically on these SOPs and know exactly what these steps are, just like an employee would. If you have SOPs that are AI integrated, your likelihood of an employee interacting with that SOP goes up drastically because they can actually interact with it. They can ask it questions and get answers very quickly instead of answers living in this weird nebulous space of maybe a manager has a certain opinion on something, on how it should work, and employees ask that manager what they should do, and the manager gives an answer that isn't necessarily outlined. If you have this SOP built into AI, can actually build this employee engagement and have a consistent view all around. And then with that comes a little bit of this personalization, and we'll get to that in a minute, leads to some really cool interactions with artificial intelligence. And then dynamic compliance, this is the last one, and we've talked about this already, but of course, like having these regulatory updates happen in basically real time can make organizations a lot more nimble. So in conclusion, really the future of standard operating procedures is an intelligent, dynamic one. So your SOPs are now, currently, they're probably just a static document living somewhere, probably preferably in the cloud, and your employees access it and they search it with Control F or they scroll through the table of contents. But instead now an SOP is like a living person. Imagine your SOP is just like a guy that is accessible by everybody all the time and is super fast at responding and has the SOP memorized A to Z, right? That is the idea behind AI behind your SOPs. Obviously, companies can't afford to hire a person for every single SOP, but that's where AI comes in and can really get your ducks in a row. So if you're ready to get your SOPs transformed into this dynamic piece, we'd love to help. We have tons of other content on the site, so check it out, and we'll talk soon.